Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Echo Aftab. In my today's session, we are going to understand a new topic and that is scope of economics. Myself Aftab Bhai. So when we speak about scope of economics, what does it mean? Scope of economics refers to the area of the sphere of study. Here we try to see what all things comes under economics, how wide or how narrow the scope of economics is. It explains what we study and what we do not study. So friends, in our previous session, we have started with nature and scope of economics, and there we have understood whether economics is a science or an art, and if it is science, whether it is a normative science or positive science. In today's session, we'll proceed with understanding how we can approach economics in different ways. That is, in economic analysis, how we can look at economics. So the first way to look at economics is through a microscope, that is microeconomic analysis. Microeconomics is derived from the Greek word micros, meaning small. Micro means a millionth part. So whenever we are looking at a thing at a broader spectrum, and if we want to just pinpoint at one particular point, at one particular instance, at one particular unit, what we need to do it, we need to see it through microscope, and that is what it is called as a millionth part. So micro means a millionth part, and microeconomics is the study of the economic actions of individuals and small group of individuals. So how to define microeconomics? Microeconomics may be defined as the branch of economic analysis which studies the economic behavior of the individual unit. We are speaking about the individuals. So about the individual units. These individual units, it may be a person, a individual, a consumer, it may be an individual firm, it may be an individual household, or it can also be an individual product, it can be a particular market. So anything that we are studying in particular, whenever we are studying something specific, that specific study comes under the purview of microeconomics. So microeconomics is the study of the economic actions of individuals and small group of individuals. So here we are concerned with economic actions of the individuals. Now what are these economic actions of the individuals? We are speaking about the various economic activities that is undertaken by the different economic agents. It may be related to consumption of an individual person or of a household, production of a particular product or production by a particular firm. So here what we are speaking is about individuals or a small group of individuals, how they are interacting in the economy, that is with regard to their economic actions. So microeconomics may be defined as a branch of economic analysis which studies the economic behavior of individual unit. It may be a person, a particular household, or a particular firm. So I hope right now it is clear to us as to what is microeconomics. So it is a study of one particular unit rather than all the units combined together. So when we speak about a particular unit, so if this is a unit, when we speak about dividing this unit into different segments or different pieces, or you can say dividing this into million parts and selecting one particular unit and analyzing this particular unit, that is what is called as a particular unit and not of the entire thing. So this becomes our micro study. That is what is microeconomics. Now see here how to look at the microeconomics. So there is a picture. In this picture what we can see, there is a forest, but in this forest if you select one particular tree and try to analyze this tree, and you are completely focusing on this particular tree, then what it is, we are leaving out the market, we are leaving out the whole, and we are selecting a particular unit of the forest, and that is this particular tree, and this study is what is called as micro study. In economics we examine the tree and not the forest, so that is what is microeconomics. So microeconomics thus studies the behavior of micro quantities or micro variables. So when we are speaking about microeconomics, here पे we speak about small quantities, we speak about micro variables. So what do you mean by variables? In economics, variables refers to anything that keeps on changing its value. So consumption is a variable, demand is a variable, price is a variable, income is a variable. So when you are studying these variables about a particular unit or about a particular individual, then that study becomes microeconomic study. So when we speak about microeconomics splits up, I'm sorry, there is a small correction. Microeconomics splits up the entire economy into smaller parts for the purpose of intensive study, and that is the reason it is called as slicing method. So if this is our economy, if this is our entire economy, in this economy what we do, we slice it into different parts. It may be on any of the parameters, it may be as slicing the economy as consumers, producers, government, or else it can be slicing the economy as agriculture sector, industrial sector, service sector. There are many ways through which we slice the economy, and when we slice it and try to study what about the consumption in the country, what about the production in the country, or what is happening in the agriculture sector, what is happening in the industrial sector, this is what is called as slicing method. So microeconomics splits up the entire economy into smaller units, and this splitting up is what is called as slicing method of studying the economics, which is nothing but microeconomics. Alfred Marshall's magnum opus, Principles of Economics, is mainly concerned with microeconomics. The entire syllabus of microeconomics, whatever we study, most of the part of microeconomics, we have taken it from Alfred Marshall's Principles of Economics. It may be utility analysis, it may be demand analysis, it may be cost analysis, it may be the markets, it may be the theory of distribution. Most of the things comes from Alfred Marshall's Principles of Economics. And that is the reason, friends, microeconomic study is also called as marginal analysis, because in microeconomics, whenever we are studying microeconomics, we are trying to understand about the concept of utility, and when we study utility, we deal with marginal utility. When we study about cost, we deal with something called as marginal cost. When we are studying about revenue, we deal with something called as marginal revenue. When we are speaking about consumption function at a macro level, we are speaking about marginal propensity to consume. So most of the things that we study in microeconomic analysis is dealing with the marginal concepts, and that is why microeconomics is also called as marginal analysis. As we move ahead in the core subject, you will come to know why it is called as marginal analysis. So in microeconomics, what are the things that we study? What is the scope of microeconomics? Friends, in microeconomics, we study the theory of product pricing, how the prices of the products are determined. Here we study about product pricing in different market conditions. It may be in perfectly competitive market or as in a imperfect market. When you speak about imperfect market, yeah, how the prices are determined in duopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic markets, and if there is no competition, how the prices are determined in monopoly. So this is what we study in microeconomics with regard to product pricing. Then comes theory of factor pricing. This is nothing but the theory of distribution. So in microeconomics, we also deal with how the rent of the land is decided, on what basis wages of labor is decided, how we decide what should be the interest on the capital. So all these things comes under the purview of microeconomics. If the first thing is product pricing, the next is factor pricing. Thirdly, we also study about theory of production. So how the goods are produced. So when we speak about theory of production, we speak about two important time periods, short run and long run. And in short run, how the output increases with increase in input, and in long run, how the output behaves when all the inputs are increased. So here we speak about the law of variable proportions. Here we speak about the law of returns to scale. And then we also study about firms and markets. So what do you mean by firm? A group of firms producing similar product constitutes to be an industry. How the industry affects the supply, and how the consumer's demand is affecting the price, and all those things. So the interaction of the supply and demand, or else you can say the market forces of demand and supply, plays a very important role in different types of markets with regard to product pricing or with regard to factor pricing. And lastly, we also study about economic welfare. The main aim of consumption, the main aim of consumers is maximizing their satisfaction. And when all the individuals maximize their satisfaction, it leads to economic welfare, the optimum consumption level, where all the individuals are satisfied. That is what is the theory of economic welfare, where Pugo has very nicely said, where all are in all the people in the economy are better off and none of them is made worse off, and that is what is called as economic welfare. So this also we study in microeconomics. Welfare economics is an extended part of microeconomics. So microeconomics is sometimes referred to as price theory. The reason is that determination of prices is at the core of microeconomics. It may be product pricing, it may be factor pricing, it may be pricing in different types of market, and all those things. So the most of the things that we study in microeconomics is related to determination of prices, and that is the reason it is also called as price theory. So having understood what is the meaning of microeconomics and scope of macroeconomics, we will move ahead to see what is macroeconomics. It is just the opposite of micro. So in macroeconomics, we study about not the individuals but about the whole. So it is also derived from Greek word macros, which means large. So macroeconomics is study of economic actions of all the individuals. Here we are emphasizing on the word all the individuals and all the small group of individuals. So macroeconomics may be defined as the branch of economic analysis which studies the economic behavior of not one particular unit, but here we study about all the units combined together. That is what is macroeconomics. As I said, macroeconomics is just the broader version of microeconomics. In micro, if you are speaking about one, in macro, we are speaking about all. Macroeconomics is study of aggregates, and that is the reason it is also called as aggregative economics. So just the opposite. If this is the forest, in microeconomics, what we were doing? In microeconomics, we were studying about a particular tree. And this study of a particular tree, if you are studying only a tree in the forest, this becomes our micro study, as you know it, about one particular unit, micro study of this particular tree. But here in macroeconomics, we don't study about a tree, but we study about all the trees that is there in the market. So when we study about all the trees in the market, this tree, or else it may be this particular tree. So when you're studying about all the trees, it is not only the study of tree, but it is the study of our entire forest. And that is not one unit or two trees or three trees or few trees, but it is a study of the entire forest. That is what is macroeconomics. So macroeconomics studies the behavior of macro quantities and macro variables. Now, what is this macro quantities or macro variables? When I spoke about micro variables, we were speaking about price of the product, we were speaking about demand of the consumer, we were speaking about supply of a particular product, we were speaking about a particular firm, or we were speaking about a particular industry, sugar industry, jute industry, steel industry. This particular study was called as micro study. Or else we are speaking about individuals' income. We are speaking about the cost of producing a particular product. All these things becomes micro variables. All these are micro variables. Now when you speak about macro variables, here we speak about the income of all the individuals. So it becomes national income, or else also called as NNP at factor cost. So here we study the different aspects of national income such as GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP. When we speak about prices, if we speak about the overall prices in the country, in the economy, we are speaking about general price level. And when the topic of general price level comes into the picture, we are speaking about inflation, we are speaking about deflation, we are speaking about the business cycles, recession and boom. So when we speak about demand at micro level, at macro level it becomes aggregate demand, the demand of all the individuals, all the entities. When we speak about supply, it becomes aggregate supply. When we speak about firms, it is all the firms, all the industries that constitute the economy. So macro variables, you can see here, if it is of one unit, here it is of all the units. Here it is of, if it is about the millionth part of the economy, here it is about the whole economy. That is what is the study of macroeconomics. So macroeconomics study the economy in big lumps for the purpose of intensive study. So when we speak about microeconomics, this study is what is micro, but in macro we pile up all these smaller units and make a lump out of it, and that is why microeconomic study is also called as method of lumping. Micro, if it is slicing method, macro is the method of lumping, the overall, the aggregate. If this is about individual, if it is about individual thing, this is about the aggregates. Aggregate study is macroeconomics. Method of lumping comes under macroeconomics. So John Maynard Keynes' famous work, General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, published in 1936, is an outstanding example of macroeconomics. So who is the father of macroeconomics? It is Lord J. M. Keynes. Who is the father of economics? Adam Smith. Who brought the mathematical picture in microeconomics? Alfred Marshall in his book The Principles of Economics. So this is what, how the subject has evolved, microeconomics and macroeconomics. Going ahead, so in macroeconomics, what are the things that we study? So we study about the theory of income, how the aggregate income is generated, how the output is produced in the economy, and what is the level of employment in the economy, what is the level of unemployment in the economy. So all these three things, income, output and employment, are most of the time same to each other. If employment increases, output increases, income increases. If there is a fall in employment, there is a fall in output, there is a fall in income. So this is what we study in macroeconomics as to what is the you can say optimum level of employment. What is the point where all the resources are fully utilized, that is the full employment that is happening in the economy. It may be about the human resources and all other resources. Then we study about theory of pricing. Here we speak about wholesale price index, consumer price index, retail price index. Here we speak about inflation, deflation, reflation, disinflation, all these concepts. Here we speak about quantity theory of money. So again we speak about theory of economic growth. So in macroeconomics we are dealing with economic growth. In microeconomics we are dealing with economic development, growth versus development, micro versus macro. And we study about the business cycles. What are business cycles? If this is the time period and if this is the GDP of the country or national income, so how it is changing over a period of time. So this change is what is called as study of business cycles, where we are speaking about peak and troughs, where we are speaking about recession, depression and boom. Boom is when the economy is working at the topmost level. Depression is when we are at the bottom. The journey from boom to depression is called as recession, economic recession. What is the difference between recession and depression? If your neighbor loses a job, it is recession. If you have lost the job, it is called as depression. That is what is the study of macroeconomics. Lastly, in macroeconomics we study macro theory of distribution. Here we study the distribution of income not on personal basis but on functional basis. So what is this? So as we know, when we are studying about factors of production, land, labor, capital, organization and their rewards. What does land gets? Land gets rent, labor gets wages, capital gets interest and organization gets profit. So when we study about an individual land unit, how the rent is determined, of an individual labor, how the wages is determined, it becomes the macro study. But when we speak about functional, what is the rent that is got by the landowners, what is the total wages that is earned by all the laborers in the country, then it becomes functional distribution, and functional distribution comes under macro theory of distribution. So this is what is the scope of macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is also called as income theory because here we are more worried about the concept of income and determining the overall income of the economy or the overall level of employment. If micro is related to, if micro is more concerned about price, macro is more concerned about income. That is why it is also called as income theory. This is what is the scope of macroeconomics. Now the question is, what is important? Microeconomics is important or macroeconomics is important? Friends, it is not as to what is important, it is as to how we are looking at the things, whether we are looking at the things at minutely or whether we are looking at the things in a more broader spectrum. So the distinction between microeconomics and macroeconomics is not clear. For example, what is macroeconomics in one situation might become macroeconomics in another situation. What do you mean by this? So friends, when you are speaking about India's GDP, whether it is a micro study or it is a macro study. Can you just guess the answer? When you're studying about India's GDP, we say that it is micro study because GDP is the total income of the country. But when you're comparing this India's GDP with world GDP, with global GDP, now what has happened? The context has changed. Global GDP has become macro and India's GDP has become micro. So in one situation, what is macro, in another situation it becomes macro. So this is what is micro versus macro. So there is no hard and fast rule, or there is nothing something called as competition between micro and macroeconomics. There is always a cooperation. So national income is micro or macro? You can say it depends upon the situation as to what we are looking. Both micro and macro seem to be competitive, but actually they are complementary to each other. You cannot have a bifurcation telling this is micro and this is macro, because micro things constitute to be the macro, and macro we get it from micro. So they are both are complementing each other and not competing with each other. To understand the functioning of the economy, we need both. We need to integrate both the approaches, micro approach and macro approach, or you can say micro analysis of economics as well as macro analysis of the economy. We need to integrate it in a very judicious manner, and that will give us a very good outcome about the economy. That will make us understand the economy in a very better way. So friends, in my next session, we'll deal with methods of economics. So for today, we'll stop the class over here. So thank you very much for being with me, for being with Understanding Economics with Professor Aftab. Till my next class, please take care of yourself and stay happy. Tata. Bye bye.